Hi, everyone. My name is Franco Aquino, and I'm co-founder of Ren Marketing, and I'm here with Julio Benavides. Julio, say hi.
Hi guys.
And he is my co-founder of Ren Marketing as well. And today we're joined by Carl Izzi, who is the founder of ARSENL Agency, and he's someone that we work with very closely. He works with us right in the same area. And Carl is an expert at digital marketing, and he's working a lot with CBD brands. So, Carl, please give us an introduction to who you are and what you do.
First, nice to see you guys. It's been a bit, and hope everything's going well for you. And very happy to be able to do this interview and spend some time with you. Thanks very much for the opportunity. So I founded ARSENL about 4 years ago. We're really focused on retail performance online. We like to say that we're about the outcome, not the output. So we're very proud of the work we do, but we're even more proud of the results that we get for businesses, especially in terms of making the cart move for online sales.
Perfect. Perfect. And so today what we're going to discuss with you, Carl, is the impact of the coronavirus on the CBD industry. So obviously we've discussed the CBD industry a lot, and I feel like there's a lot that you know about what's going on and some opportunities that people who are listening to this video or watching this video might be able to take away with them. So just can you tell us a little bit about what you're seeing in this case, the impact of coronavirus on the CBD industry?
Sure. Well, we're fortunate to work with 3 companies in the CBD space, one of which is a recognized industry leader. And we do a lot of different work for the CBD companies, both on the development side in terms of developing and maintaining e-commerce stores, and also on the advertising and search engine optimization side. If that sounds funny, everybody in the business knows that there are significant restrictions from the 2 major ad platforms, Google and Facebook, on CBD advertising, but I think we've made a lot of progress in terms of helping our clients find effective ways to advertise. The way that I would describe the business is pre-COVID, there were all the signs of a business that was really heating up. Since the Farm Bill was approved in late 2018, there's been a huge increase in grassroots consumer demand for CBD products and information around CBD, particularly for people who are looking for alternative treatments to pain and joint ailments and anxiety and depression. And while CBD may not be medically proven to help, there's certainly a grassroots swell of people who believe that CBD has had a major impact on their overall health. So this has really been an industry that's been driven by how consumers feel about the impact of CBD, not necessarily by the medical community. And regulations, as if you're in the business or are aware of CBD, are murky at best in terms of what the federal government has said you can say about the product, even while the federal government's been very clear about the production and sale of the product. So coming into the situation before COVID, we saw a huge increase and continue to for consumer demand. We also saw a tremendous amount of supply come online. The last count I saw was tracking of over 3,500 CBD brands, and it's a business with a relatively low barrier to entry, and a lot of those were mom and pop brand new brands that popped up. Everything from that to industry leaders like Charlotte's Web to Gronk and Danica Patrick's celebrity brands in between. So there's been a lot of supply that's come online, a lot of production to support that supply. And as any business that grows as quickly as CBD does, there have been some imbalances as that business has grown fast and possibly retrenched in the last couple of months, particularly as there have been so many entrants into the business. And it's very much a normal cycle for how industries at this rate of growth experience their growth. So that was the situation coming to COVID. When COVID hit, we saw an absolute surge in demand. So statistically across the industry, the official tracking is about a 30% increase in gross revenues for companies that are selling CBD. And if you think about that, that's pretty significant because most of the CBD at retail is now closed. So you're talking about businesses that experienced a significant shift to online as the primary source of connection with consumers. And we are definitely seeing that shift with our manufacturers or our marketing companies that are selling CBD, much greater rates of sales online. Also, from an advertising standpoint, a much better return on ad spend as advertising has loosened up a little bit in terms of overall cost per clicks.
Yes.
And also the fact that consumers are spending well in the category. They're spending a lot because they're stuck at home and they're conscious about their health. They're looking for products that they feel will help them feel good, lower anxiety, boost their immunity, and make them feel better about the situation, which is obviously a situation that's hard for everybody.
Okay, great. And given that, like you mentioned, that the general cost of advertising has gone down because, and this is something that I've read as well, where a lot of businesses that are in like the travel industry, a lot of businesses that are in the movie industry, all these businesses that would normally expect people to come into their locations or to their ships or to their airplanes, since they cannot bring people in, there's no point for them to advertise, right? Now, given that the advertising costs can be lower if you want to advertise CBD products, I'm sure that there are a lot of businesses that want to do it. But obviously, CBD is kind of difficult to advertise because just like you mentioned, when it comes to Facebook and Google, there are many restrictions. So based on this, what would you say are some of the challenges that companies are facing right now? And maybe some of the tips that you would provide, because like we mentioned, or we discussed, there are a lot of changes that are going on right now in regards to the way that these CBD products are being sold.
So you bring up a really good point, and one of the major challenges for CBD brands has been the restrictions on using the term CBD in advertising. And really, there are a lot of ways to describe the product, but what we're really talking about is full spectrum hemp extract with CBD. So CBD is a compound, and while you can't necessarily say CBD in advertising on the major platforms, although you can on, for example, display advertising that's off Google or off Facebook, you can talk about the fact that you're selling full spectrum hemp extract. So that is the focus that we have taken with our clients. That means some workarounds and some restrictions in terms of what we're able to say on our website to be able to stay in compliance with the advertising platforms. But we've had a very successful 6 months to a year with uninterrupted advertising campaigns in market for major brands, really without problems. With actually the tacit blessing of the advertising platforms for how we're approaching it, which is there are a lot of ways to go about this, and some marketers are taking a very short-term approach, which we don't recommend. We think the right thing to do is to try to stay in compliance with the advertising platforms and treat them as if the long-term relationship with them is important to you.
Definitely. Julio, would you like to add something?
Well, I want to know, it's like, so there's all these restrictions. What other channels or what other strategies are you utilizing? So of course, right now, everything is cheaper because there's a lot more supply, a lot less demand, but what other channels have you been leveraging to generate traffic with all these restrictions?
Well, social and organic search are probably the two other major sources of traffic, followed by affiliate marketing. Really, the business has grown on the back of organic searches. There's a lot of competition for that to rank in Google, to make sure that category searches, people searching for CBD oil or hemp extract, are able to find their way to websites by doing an organic search. So we've helped our clients focus on that. It's a longer term approach than advertising is. There's no silver lining. It's very much based on content creation and content deployment on a website and off, but it's also extremely effective. The rates of searches have absolutely surged for CBD and hemp related terms. And so if you're a well-known brand and you're willing to put the time in to become well-known in search and to create the content that the search engines are looking for to help you rank well, you have an excellent opportunity as a brand to drive organic searches to the website. I'd say social has also been an absolutely critical tool. I saw a news blurb fly by this morning that said hemp and CBD were some of the most popular terms used for content and searches on Instagram. So as people are looking for categories of content on Instagram, those are extremely popular terms. So consumers have led the interest in CBD and full spectrum hemp extract products more than anybody else. So they're the ones out there on social. They're engaging with content in it, and it makes having a very strong social presence on the major platforms extremely important, and also recognizing the value of working with influencers who have trusted relationships with health and beauty followers to be able to reach those audiences with an effective message.
Okay, great. And what would you say that some businesses, because like you mentioned, across the board is like about a 30% increase in CBD sales. Now, when it comes to some of the businesses that might not be doing it correctly, right? What would you say are some of those items that they shouldn't be doing that maybe they're not doing correctly?
Well, I think when there are regulatory challenges to flirt with those, for example, the FDA isn't going to take it lightly if you make claims that are unsubstantiated about a product for anything that you're going to put in your body. And so staying away from claims is extremely important. Even if your customers say, this product really helped me feel better or do more, it's very difficult to be able to say that as a marketer in the CBD space right now. And because the science in terms of the long-term studies about the efficacy of the products aren't there yet. So regardless of what your customer's saying, you have to really toe the line in terms of the regulatory environment and being careful with your messaging. I would say the second thing that we see a lot of, which I mentioned previously, is a very short-term view by marketers. For example, it's easy to create a new Facebook ad account and throw up a landing page that will pass the initial screen of the ad platforms and put up advertising that may not technically meet the requirements of Facebook and Instagram or Google. But to know that even if that gets shut down, you can come back and create a different account and take a new approach. We don't believe in that approach. I think it's unhealthy for brands to do that. It's unhealthy for the user experience, and it's also unhealthy for those brands. Sooner or later, Facebook and or Google are going to catch up to you, and you're risking a long-term relationship with those platforms by not adhering to terms of service around the use of CBD terms.
Okay. Yeah, and I agree with that practice. That isn't very healthy for brands. And I have read a lot about what people are saying that they've been trying to do when it comes to advertising CBD. And it's unfortunate that a lot of them are saying that they have to go through different ad accounts so that you can keep the ads up and running. But I think at the end of the day, it's until you implement it on your own or until you work with someone who understands how to make this happen, you're going to come across those issues where you're going to learn from your mistakes. Like I think one of the points you brought up earlier, which was a very good point, was that display advertising outside of Google's networks might be a way to be able to get that exposure out there and through the right way, right? So I think that's good. And before we move on to the final question, Julio, is there anything you want to add?
Well, I actually wanted to ask a question. So I know you've mentioned several channels, and I'm sure there's plenty of business owners who might have launched a CBD brand in the recent months, right? Trying to start the new year with a new product or so. E-commerce sales are up, but the truth is right now there's a lot of fear, so people might be scared to advertise, right? But I feel like those the ones who are not brave enough, but just understand what is happening and recognize that right now advertising is cheaper. What would you recommend would be like the best first step in advertising a CBD brand? Like if I were to open up a CBD brand, sometime in January, all this happened. I want to take my first step into advertising. Where should I start?
Well, start with your website. One of the most important aspects of any online marketing is making sure that the website experience that people have when they finally do get to you, whether that's one user or 100 users, is a really premium experience. And what we see is that CBD consumers are hungry for information. And at a time when most of us are working at home, where we have less commute time in cars and more time to consume content, being able to deliver and have an audience for long-form content, it's never really been better. And we know from searches that CBD consumers really still have the basic questions. What's the difference between CBD and THC? What are these other CBD-related terms that I hear popping up? How will this impact me? How do I know what's a good product from a bad product? So there's a great opportunity to make if you're a CBD brand today, you want to make sure that your buying experience is excellent, that it's a smooth experience through the cart, that people can find a product, read reviews about it, which are incredibly important in a peer-driven business like this, and also find the content that's going to help them make an educated decision. So if I was starting a brand today, I would really be focusing on how could I develop the best relationship possible, a long-term relationship with my customers, making sure that they have the tools that they really want today in terms of ease of comparison of products, being able to purchase on a one-time or a subscription basis, and then being able to consume the content they need to make a good decision. Beyond that, for advertising, I think you really need to take a strategic view at it. The cost to get into advertising in CBD means having some relationships with the ad platforms. One of the things I think that's made our agency different is before ever talking to our customers about advertising on Google or Facebook, first we talked to Google and Facebook about what the opportunities were and what they were willing to tolerate and what they were not. And we've strictly adhered to the guidelines that we've been given through our relationships with those ad platforms in terms of what's allowable. And of course, CBD as a term is not. And that's the first place to start. So my advice would be to listen carefully to what those platforms are saying. Best if you have partners that have relationships that can help you negotiate the right path so that you keep your opportunities open. And then also to look beyond those platforms to programmatic display advertising. It's a fancy word for saying that it's really display advertising that we can serve around the internet across a lot of publishers that are happy to take ads for CBD and have, as long as the quality of those ads is really good and as long as you as an advertiser are adhering to federal guidelines regarding claims.
Okay. And a follow-up question I have on what you mentioned for the websites, because I think that when I was reading up on CBD maybe a year or two ago, I know that there were many, many restrictions in that, you know, if you wanted to use, I can't remember what the differences were, but I remember that some platforms would not allow you to have a CBD site. Some of them would not allow you to use their payment processors, so you have to use something that's like third party. What would you say, and you know, to add to Julio's question, what would you say would be the step that someone should take if they want to build that first website? Would they go Shopify? Would they go WordPress? Or would they use a different other route?
Well, I think you start at the end of the process, and the difficulties you're talking about are because there are federal banking regulations.
Exactly, yeah.
Apply to companies that are selling hemp and marijuana-related products. Obviously, marijuana you cannot sell online. Hemp-related products you can, but that doesn't mean that the banking system and the credit card processors approach the business like they would if you were selling a loaf of bread. It is different and there's more regulation. So the first thing to do is make sure that you have a payment processor that's actually going to process your credit card transactions and use that as a basis for making decisions as to what e-commerce platform you use. Up until the fall, marketers weren't really allowed in the US to use Shopify, which is the major e-commerce platform, to market, to use as an e-commerce platform for hemp-related products. Shopify changed their regulations in the fall, and it's much easier to use platforms like that. So more and more, it's becoming similar to how other businesses in other categories operate, but it's still good to know what your relationships are and who's going to process your credit card transactions at the end of the day.
Perfect. Perfect. Great. And I think that's a really good point to share, because a lot of people probably, they're going to take your advice and say, okay, we got to focus on the website. And before you do that, focus on how you're going to be able to process payments. Otherwise, you might spend so much money on setting up in some place and then your website gets shut down.
That's correct.
So now for the last question, what are some opportunities that some CBD companies can be taking right now, if any, right, to be able to set themselves up for success for the future? Because chances are right now, a few of them are probably losing money because they probably don't have all of this digital infrastructure set up. You know, the PPP program, apparently today they mentioned that it ran out of money. So, you know, that's going to hurt some small businesses that might have some of these services. I don't know if that applies for CBD brands, but what would you say are some opportunities that exist, if any?
Well, you know, I'll start with the hard and then the good. I think it's be hard today to come into the CBD space and try to sell CBD oil as your main product without taking a very long-term view at it, because there are a lot of companies doing that already, and arguably the business is going to experience a period of shakeout as new businesses that are growing fast do. Where I do think there are opportunity, I saw today an article about Molson Coors and the fact that they're producing a non-alcoholic CBD beverage. And we have other clients who are taking CBD in a different direction, applying it to products, skincare products, and other things that that maybe aren't as mainstream as the typical oils or even the typical skincare treatment that's out there. So I think if you have ideas in terms of delivery mechanisms for CBD that are healthy and safe, it's a great time to be innovative because people are looking for new products in the space. The second thing I think is that from a marketing standpoint, as we discussed previously, there is really no better time than to focus on the relationship that you have with your consumers and prospects. So if you have an email database of people who've expressed interest but maybe not purchased from you, now is a really good time to create that long-term content, bolster your relationship with consumers, and increase the inherent value in the relationship you have with them and in your brand. Even in a business that's going to experience some shakeout, and CBD will, there are great opportunities for the businesses that come through the other side of that to have strong, healthy, productive relationships with their consumers and to continue to grow. And I think now, because of COVID, people's interest in their health, people's time in terms of being able to consume long-form content, this is the time to really be stepping on the gas for that.
Perfect. And you know what? That's a really good point. Right now is the perfect time for people to be reading up on what they're going to potentially adopt for the future. You know, a lot of people are probably behind their phones. They're coming across some of these articles and they're not putting it off because they don't have any other options to take in right now. And Julio, is there anything else you want to add to that before we close off this session?
No.
Okay. So Carl, before we just immediately close, I would like to provide you an opportunity to maybe share with people how they might be able to get in contact with you, or, you know, just do like a small little pitch, depending if you want to do one. And yeah, we could go from there.
Yeah, so you can find us on the web at ARSENLAgency.com. We spell it a little funny. It's missing an A, so it's ARSENL Agency.com. And my name is Carl Izzi, and I'm the managing director of ARSENL. And it's pretty easy to find me if you look in Google. So we'd be happy to talk to you about opportunities in the CBD space, and because we've worked in the CBD space, also in the marijuana space as well.
Great. So Carl, thank you so much for participating in this video conference. I think that there's a lot of good tools and tips that you've shared that other people might be able to learn from. And especially, you know, we're thinking about this piece of content for the long term as well. You know, this will apply for people for the next few years because there's a lot of things that they should keep in mind if they want to open up a CBD business today, tomorrow, next year, etc. So with that being said, thank you all for watching this video. I am going to tag Carl in the comment section below. That way, if you want to be able to connect with him, you can do so. And I'm also going to be tagging Julio. And if you have any questions, please reach out to us. We are going to always be paying attention to our inboxes. And thanks again for watching. Have a great day.
Bye.